Let's open GitHub in the browser. Go into the repositories page. Let's select the repository we are practicing with. Now, let's go to the local copy of the repository in the terminal. You can see that the name of the repository in the terminal is the same as the name of the repository in GitHub. Let's go into the repository. You can see that we have 3 items here. Likewise, we have the same 3 items in GitHub. But if you look carefully at this place, you can see that the number of branches is 1. The question now arises, what is a branch in Git and GitHub? Think of a branch as creating another version of your project where you can work independently without affecting the main project. For example, imagine you are building an African tech community website. The main project may already be working properly. Now, you want to add a chat feature, for example. Instead of editing the main project directly, you can create a new branch called chat feature. Inside that branch, you can write code, test features, fix errors, and make changes freely. Meanwhile, the original project remains untouched and stable. When you finish your work and everything is working correctly, you can then combine your branch with the main branch. This process of combining is called merging. If you click here, you can see that I currently have only one branch, and the name of that branch is main. The main branch is the default branch in Git and GitHub. It usually contains the primary and stable version of the project. Whenever you create a new repository, Git automatically creates this main branch for you. As developers, you can later create additional branches from the main branch to work on new features, fix bugs, or test ideas without affecting the main project. You can think of main branch as the parent branch, while other branches are created from it for separate tasks. If you click here, it takes you to the branch page where you can see all the branches in the repository. Now, you can see that we only have one branch here, which is the main branch. And you can also see that it is the default branch. Now that we know how to check the list of branches in GitHub, how can we do the same in the terminal? Let's go to the terminal. You can see that we are inside the My First Ace repo repository, and we have these 3 files there. To check the list of branches in this repository from the terminal, we use the command git branch, then press enter. You can see that it gives us main, which is the same thing we saw in GitHub. So, how can we create a new branch? Creating a new branch in the terminal is simple. Just type git space branch, then followed by the name you want to give the new branch. Let's name it food. Then press enter. Checking the list of branches again with git space branch, you can see that we now have 2 branches, main and food. But take note of the main branch. You can see that it is green and it has an asterisk before it. This shows that the current branch is main. So we now have two branches in the local repository on my computer. But when we refresh the branch page in GitHub, you can see that we still have only one branch there. The newly created branch has not appeared in the GitHub yet. Recall that if you make changes in the local repository and want them to appear in the online repository on GitHub, you need to push. So before this newly created branch can appear in GitHub, we need to push it. But before we can push a branch, we first need to switch to that branch. Right now, we are still in the main branch. If we push now, it will not push the full branch. It will only update the main branch in GitHub if there is any update. So we need to switch to the branch we want to push, which is the full branch. The question now is, how can we switch from one branch to another? To switch branches, we simply use git space switch space the name of the branch, which is food. Then press enter. Now let's check the list of branches again with Git branch. You can see that the asterisk is now beside food and food is now green. This means that we are now in the food branch. If we check the contents of the directory, you can see that we still have the same three files. Now let's push. When I run git push, it gives an error. This is because I just created the branch and I am pushing it to the GitHub for the first time. So I need to set the upstream origin of the branch. Git has already given me the command to use. Let me enter the command. Now it has been pushed successfully. Let's refresh the branch page in GitHub. You can see that immediately I pushed from terminal, the new branch appeared in GitHub. We now have the food branch. Let's go back to the repository. Now you can see that the number of branches is now 2. And if you check here, you can see the 2 branches. You can also see that the current branch in GitHub is main. That is why it is marked. Now, let's go back to the terminal. We are currently in the food branch. Listing the content, you can see that we still have the same 3 files. Now, let's create a new file called car.txt. Let me write something there. Then save and quit. Now you can see that we have 4 items, including the newly created car.txt. Let's add, commit, and push. You can see that it pushes to food branch because we are currently inside the food branch. Let's now go and check GitHub. Refreshing the repository page, you can see that we still have only 3 files. The new file car.txt is not here, even though we have pushed it. The reason is simple. If you check here, you will see that the current branch in GitHub is still main, but we created car.txt inside the food branch. So we need to switch to the food branch. Click here and select food. You can now see that car.txt has appeared. There is a logic behind this that you need to understand. When you create a branch, you are creating something like another version of your project timeline. This version is connected to the original project, but changes made in that branch stay there until you merge them. If we go back to main, you can see that we still have only three files. Although car.txt exists in the repository, it exists only in the food branch and not in main. This means that you can work inside one branch without affecting another branch. If you want changes from one branch to appear in another branch, then you merge. This behavior happens in the local repository. Here in the terminal, we are still inside food branch and we have four files. Let's switch to main and check the contents. You can now see that main does not contain car.txt. We still have only three files. So in one repository, different branches can contain different contents. Switching back to food, you can see that the four files are still there. The behavior is the same in GitHub. Now, let me draw your attention to the number of commits. You can see that the food branch has 4 commits. If I switch to main, you can see that it has 3 commits. At a glance, it may look like Git is comparing the total number of commits, but that is not exactly how Git works. Git compares the difference in commit history. It checks which commits exist in one branch but do not exist in another branch. This is where the idea of ahead and behind comes in. If a branch contains commits that do not exist in main, the branch is ahead. If main contains commits that are missing from that branch, then the branch is behind. In our case, the food branch is ahead of main by one commit because it contains the car.txt commit. The main branch does not yet have that change. Click here to see the branch details. You can see the main branch and the food branch. The main branch is under the default category. The food branch is under your branches. You can now see the ahead and behind values. The food branch contains one extra commit. That is why it shows 1 under ahead. You can also see 0 under behind. This means that the food branch already contains everything in main plus an additional commit. Also remember this, the number of commits is not the same as the number of files. The fact that main has 3 files and 3 commits is only coincidence. The fact that food has 4 files and 4 commits is also accidental. Commits are related to saved changes, not file counts. You may be wondering, we pushed only once in the food branch. So Why does it already have 4 commits? The reason is simple. Whenever you create a branch, it inherits the history of its parent branch. Before creating food, the main branch already had 3 commits. So when food branch was created, it inherited those commits automatically. Then we added car.txt, committed it and pushed it. That increased the commit count to 4. To prove that commit count is different from file count, let's create more files and push them together with one commit. We are still inside the food branch. Let's create building africa.txt. Write something there, then save and quit. Now create unitedafrica.txt. Write something there, then save and quit. Now create tech.txt. Write something there, then save and quit. Now we have 7 files in the food branch. Let's add commit and push. Refreshing GitHub, you can see that we now have 7 files, but the commits are now 5. We created 3 files, but only one extra commit was added. Switching to main, you can see that we still have 3 files and 3 commits. Checking the branch page, you can see that food is now 2 commits ahead of main. Now, to update the main branch so that it contains the new files and commits, we need to merge. Let's go back to the terminal. We are still in the food branch. Before merging, we first switch to the destination branch, which is main. Now we are inside main. The merge command is git space merge space the name of the branch you want to merge from, which is food. Then press enter. The merge was successful. Checking the files again, you can see that we now have 7 files in main. Refreshing GitHub, you can see that the online repository is still showing 3 files. This is because the merge happened only in the local repository. Now we need to push the updated main branch. After pushing, refresh GitHub again. You can now see that the main branch has been updated. We now have 7 files and 5 commits, just like the food branch. If we check the branch details again, you can see that food is no longer ahead of main. The ahead value is now 0. Clicking the commit button, you can now see all 5 commit messages inside the main branch as well.